6 minutes after takeoff, Flight 1421 crashes into the Pacific Ocean. During the evacuation, an engine explodes and the plane is flooded. Those still alive are forced to close the doors, but it's too late. The plane sinks to the bottom with 12 passengers trapped inside. More than 200 feet below the surface, engineer Will Kent and his 11-year-old daughter Shannon are waist deep in water and fighting for their lives. Our book, Drowning. The author, T.J. Newman. And you're listening to Lit Society. Let's get lit! Hey, y'all. Hey, this is Kari.
And this is Alexis.
And you're listening to Lit Society, a podcast about books and, I was going to say drowning, about books and drama. So, today we are talking about being on a plane and the worst thing possible happens. Each week, readers, as you know, we choose a theme to discuss inspired by the book we're reading. So, of course, what do you think the theme is this week, Alexis?
What you just said.
Yes, how to survive a plane crash.
Okay.
These are FAA tips for air travelers. And I will go ahead and leave the source in the show notes so you guys can read along and prepare for your next flight. Alexis, have you ever had a fear that your plane was going to go down? You fly pretty often.
Always when I first started flying, I always had that fear with takeoff and landing.
Yeah, it dissipated since then.
Mm-hmm.
I never think that just because we're always told that flights are safer than car travel.
Mm-hmm.
Than travel on the ground. And it feels so solid. But of course, just like, you don't think so? I guess
No.
Turbulence. No. Well, I be knocked out usually on the flight from beginning to end. But of course, anything can happen on the ground or in the air. So there are a few tips that may save our lives. These are from, again, FAA, the Federal Aviation Association, something like that. But they're posted on WebMD. And again, this link will be in the show notes. So first, you want to plan, read, and listen. There's always a section at the beginning of the flight when the flight attendants get aboard, ask you to pull out those cards and follow along with them as they demonstrate safety procedure. Do you usually pay attention to this section, Alexis?
Each and every time.
That's a good traveler.
Aviation Administration.
Administration, not association. Okay, thank you. Yeah, so I always figure this is a lot. And if I'm to recall this procedure in an emergency, it's not going to happen. So I sometimes do go to sleep. However, that's terrible. Well, the tip here is, even if the flight you took last week is the same one you're taking this week, the plane may have changed, and each plane has its own safety procedure. Mm-hmm. So pay attention. Yep. What's the flight attendant's number one responsibility? Is it to get your cocktail and your nuts? What is it, Alexis?
Safety.
Saving lives. That is why they're there. Flight attendants are very highly trained in survival practices and procedures within aircraft. They're trained to take care of the safety issues regarding aircraft, air travel, and their primary jobs are not to serve us crackers and soda. So if we don't pay attention, if I don't pay attention, I could basically risk their lives. Because they need to make sure in the case of a catastrophe that the passengers are safe. So you want to help them out by paying attention at the beginning of your flight to those safety procedures. Number 2, dress for survival. How can you dress for survival? Any idea, Alexis?
Wear tennis shoes. Be ready to run.
Don't wear flip-flops. If you nasty, like me, and
what
you take
nasty?
Your shoes off during the flight. Okay, I'm in my Korean eye mask. I have my special compression socks. And my feet also may have a mask on them.
Oh.
I'm not going to stop doing that. However, if you do not have your shoes on, picture running away from a burning plane barefoot. That don't sound fun.
No.
Glass everywhere?
No. Mm-mm.
No. Shorts and skirts, high-heeled shoes just are not our preferred attire for flying, this article says, because it's hard to run in those kinds of shoes and actually escape when you're not clothed properly. So be mindful of what you wear. I also remember a tip. This is not in this official article, but years ago, it suggested you wear leather because you might be able to eat it if you strand it. I don't know about that. There's a lot of dyes and chemicals in treated leather. Number 3, brace yourself. If time is on your side, make the most of it. Review safety information about bracing for those landings, those unexpected landings. The brace position depends on where you're sitting. So for passengers with a seat in front of them, the suggested brace position is to cross your hands on the seat in front of you and rest your forehead on top of your hand. Can you do that, Alexis?
Rest your forehead
on top of your hand. So act like you back in school. Yeah, and you sleeping a little bit in class.
Yeah. Okay, sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but on the seat in front of you.
Mm-hmm.
That way you don't have as far forward to fall if you didn't have your head there. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So it's more difficult to get way down and hug your knees when you're in a seat that has another seat in front of it, especially now because seat room is so limited.
Yeah, for sure.
And 2 more tips. Penultimately, protect your legs and feet. So it's recommended that your feet are planted as far back as you can get them. Of course, that your shoes are not open toes. And it's also recommended that carry-on baggage be put under the seat and not in the overhead bin. That gives a block there so that the feet and legs can't go up under the seat in front of you. Finally, follow instructions if they're available. If flight attendants are calling out directions, listen carefully. Try not to succumb to panic. That's why it is important to know what to do even without their orders, because they're probably going to be screaming instruction that they already gave you at the beginning of the flight. And you don't want to wake up in a panic, the plane going down like, what you say? Say it louder. I don't know what that is. Where is it? Also in this book, someone inflates their inflatable device inside the plane. Don't do that. Don't do that. It makes it difficult to maneuver in those very tight spaces. So for extra tips that might actually save your life or the life of someone you know, check those show notes. I'll go ahead and paste that source there. That's from WebMD. And these tips come from FAA, which is the Federal Aviation Administration. Thank you, Alexis. All right, you ready to take a break?
Yeah, let's do it.
And we're back. Alexis, we've read a book by T.J. Newman in the past, and we loved it, every aspect of it.
Did we?
No, we didn't.
Okay.
We didn't, but that doesn't mean we're not going to give her another shot as we did today. So is there anything more you have to add to our knowledge of the author?
Yeah, so I'll mention that the title of the book is Drowning, the Rescue of Flight 1421. And I'll mention this is the second book of T.J. Newman, and it was published in May of 2023. And if you recall, there were some bidding wars over the movie rights for Drowning, and Warner Brothers got that one. So hopefully we'll see a movie soon.
I don't recall. We talked about that when we reviewed Falling.
Yep.
Did Falling also get a movie option?
Yes, it did.
So we should expect a series, perhaps, a T.J. Newman series. Do you have a year when we should expect those films?
I looked for updated information. I didn't see anything.
Okay, fair enough.
Bit of inspiration. She said I was a flight attendant for 10 years, which we knew, and red eyes were her favorite flights to work. She said, I remember one red eye while flying back to the mainland from Hawaii. It was the middle of the night, and I was looking out the small porthole window in the forward galley at nothing. In every direction, as far as I could see, there was nothing but pitch black darkness and water. And at that moment, I realized how truly isolated and alone we were. So I started thinking, what if we went down out here? Who would save us? How would we save ourselves? And that was her inspiration for drowning.
Wow.
Kari, who do you think would enjoy reading this book?
So actually not if you enjoyed Falling, because I don't even know who you are if you enjoyed that book. But I was actually thinking of Michael Crichton because of the details in the plot. This is a book that isn't really trying to make the characters, or would you agree, that it's not trying to get you too attached to the characters. It's more plot driven. And the plot is very technical, as she is a former flight attendant and has that deeper knowledge of flight procedure. So the way it brought almost a scientific element to it and a tactical knowledge behind what these passengers would need to do really put me in the mind of Crichton, who basically became a scientist just to be a better writer. And so that might sound far-fetched, but I think when you read this book, all those technical details really shine through. And the plot is what you're seduced by, not necessarily the character, in my opinion. And Alexis, why did you choose this book?
It's interesting that you say it puts you in mind of Michael Crichton, because that's her favorite thriller.
Writer?
Or Jurassic Park specifically. It's her favorite
I saw a lot
thriller.
of Jurassic Park in this book.
So I knew when I read Falling that I wanted to read Drowning. It was already out, so it was time. I picked it up, read it, and it was time to go.
All right, sounds good. Well, without further ado, let's take a spoiler-filled deep dive into Drowning by T.J. Newman. Alexis, you have the floor.
And actually, it won't be spoiler-filled. It'll have some spoils, but it won't be spoiler-filled because the book was released in May of 23. It's only September 24. So I like to give it a little bit more time before I tell you all of it. So,
doesn't it feel like 2023 was years ago?
No.
Maybe that's just me. No. Okay, go ahead, please.
Okay. The term last ditch is used to describe an effort that is made at the end of a long line of failures. It is the final attempt and is not expected to succeed. In aviation, the emergency landing of an aircraft on water is called a ditching. Part 1, it's going down. Will and his 11-year-old daughter, Shannon, are on a flight from Hawaii to San Francisco that has just taken off. He looks out the window just in time to see the engine explode. The aircraft shakes, the passengers are panicked, and from the window seats, you can see that the engine is on fire. Parts of the wing was shredded and chunks of metal are ripping off. But below is crystal clear turquoise water. While Will pulls out his life vest and hands Shannon hers, as a middle-aged white guy unbuckles and heads to the back of the plane and yells at the male flight attendant as the flight attendant yells for him to sit down. Suddenly, the plane drops sharply and the man in the blue polo shirt goes smashing into the ceiling of the plane and then slamming back to the floor. The plane jerks again as a piece of the engine slams against the plane. Shannon took out her phone to text her mom just then, just as the plane dips and her phone flies to the floor. She bends to grab the phone, but her father stops her and tells her to leave it. Shannon insisted she needs to tell her mom what's happening, and Will tells her you will tell her in person. Soon the captain, Captain Miller, his voice comes on the intercom with instructions. This is the captain. Prepare to ditch.
I thought she was going to say die. Imagine you on the plane and this is your captain. Prepare to die.
Wow.
I ain't going to sugarcoat it.
Now,
stay praying.
They're still professionals here. Followed by Colleen.
Well, tell me the truth.
The truth is the plane is going to be ditched. And here is the Colleen with the flight attendant, the lead flight attendant, whose voice comes on air and she gives the instructions. Ladies and gentlemen, we will be making an emergency landing on the water. There's a pouch containing a life vest under your seat. Place the vest over your head and buckle the strap. Do not inflate the vest. Only inflate the vest as you leave the aircraft. Those are instructions that we should be paying attention to. While the captain does come online, he's really talking to the flight attendants. He's not talking to the
passengers. They don't know what last ditch is, or
right.
ditching the plane means.
That's left to the flight attendants to relay the message that the passengers need to hear. As another chunk of the engine slams against the window, there's an unaccompanied minor on the board, and she wonders if she's going to die.
Oh, she's not the baby.
Yeah, she's under the care of one flight attendant, Ed Vernon.
Who's at work, by the way. So this happens. This is just how it works. But those flight attendants, I mean, they're not there really to take care of kids. They're not babysitters.
No.
So you have an unaccompanied minor that's there by herself. And if something really terrible happens, an adult is responsible basically to tell her parents. That's how I see unaccompanied minors.
Mm-hmm.
And what I love about this part too is why was there this issue with the plane to begin with?
We don't know.
We'll never know, and I never cared.
It doesn't matter, does it?
No.
There's
no terrorist situation cooked up in the sky. No. All we need to know is the plane is being ditched. Get with it.
Yep.
Yeah.
So co-pilot Kit tells air traffic control, ATC, that engine 1 is lost. There's no hydraulic fluid. There's no hydraulic power. Everything that allows them to fly the plane had frozen in place. The plane is essentially dead in the air.
No.
The pilots have no control. They couldn't even turn back to Honolulu if they wanted to. The pilots had no way to fight the engine fire or cut the fuel that was feeding it. Air traffic control suggested that they go to Maui or the Big Island.
And that's when I was ready to fight air traffic control. Just go to Maui. Just eat cake.
Like, kid is like, the expression unable. That's it. Mm-hmm. They were 4 minutes into this flight. They couldn't even turn back to Honolulu, as I said.
And these are mountainous islands. They can't just land anywhere.
And Maui and the Big Island were too far. The mountains ahead were uninhabited and almost entirely mountainous, as Kari mentioned. The only thing they could do is land in water. Co-pilot Kit tells air traffic control to get rescue team ready and get us in the water. Captain Miller and Kit prepare for landing. Back in the cabin, Will make sure that Shannon has the proper position for the water landing. In their seat, laying the chest flat against her thighs, arms wrapped under her legs, behind her knees, and keeping her heels forward in case the seats collapse. And finally, keep your tongue on the roof of your mouth so you don't bite it. And
I thought that was a great tip.
Yeah, and when the plane comes to a stop, get off fast.
I'm like putting myself in the position of these characters. What if I just ate a cheeseburger? I can't fold up like that. So what I'm supposed to do?
Stomach full bloat.
So, okay.
That's what I was thinking. What if I had cheese in America?
Goodbye, me.
You're going to be real uncomfortable. That's all I can say about that.
And I can't do that. I don't care what position we in. So, I ain't going to be uncomfortable. All I pay for these seats.
Listen, that's how it works sometimes. Meanwhile, there's Ruth. She says to her husband, Ira, 55 years isn't a bad run to death do us part. A young woman is leaving a voice message for her mother as she cries, I'm on a plane. Something's happened. I don't think we're going to make it. More calls, more prayers could be heard. There are 99 souls on board. Air traffic control again encourages Flight 1421 to land, telling them that all air traffic has stopped and all attention is on them. Godspeed. Captain Miller gives Kit the cue, and Kit pushes the button to ditch the plane, making the plane watertight. And she speaks calmly and with a firm voice, prepare for impact. Brace, brace, brace. The 4 flight attendants begin shouting commands over and over. Heads down, stay down, heads down, stay down, heads down, stay down. It is repeated. Passengers place their bodies into emergency landing positions to give them the best chance for survival. 6 minutes and 37 seconds after taking off, Flight 1421 crashes into the water. The impact damages the frame, snapping the right wing, but the plane stays mostly intact.
I was holding my breath this whole time reading the book. Okay.
The engine was still on fire. Chaos is unfolding inside the plane. People were bleeding, crying. Some were dead. Shannon was shaking and calling for Will, but he's not responding. Flight attendants started shouting instructions. Release seatbelts, light vests, under seat, put them on, leave everything, come this way. That's repeated constantly. Molly, another flight attendant, could see the 2 exits were unusable and water was seeping into the plane. She quickly redirects the passengers to another exit. Flight attendant Colleen, she directs passengers to the primary exit. Passengers are lined up and they're surging forward, pushing and shoving to get off the plane.
Yeah, a mini stampede, like a slow motion stampede.
Yeah. And they eventually drag Colleen off the plane. One man pushes his way over the seats, and this is blue polo shirt.
We ain't gonna forget blue polo shirt.
To get to the front of the line. The elderly couple that I mentioned earlier, Ira and Ruth, because of the rush, they decide to sit down and wait until the rush has passed. Will eventually gains consciousness. He and Shannon make their way to the exit, meanwhile noticing another little girl, Maya, that's the unaccompanied minor, and she's slightly younger than Shannon, so they take her along with them. Kit emerges from the cockpit. That was the co-pilot, if you remember. There's a loud mechanical noise, and the plane starts to vibrate. Kaholo, another flight attendant, reports that the engine is still on, shaking violently, and he can see jet fuel spilling into the seat. Just then, the remaining engine blows, shooting shrapnel everywhere and spreading jet fuel and fumes. The jet fuel ignites, causing a massive explosion and fire. More people... there's smoke and jet fuel everywhere. More people died. More people are treading water, unsure which way to go. From the plane, you can see the slide raft was quickly deflating. You could hear screams, see dead bodies floating. As Will surveys the situation and yells to the flight attendants to shut the exits.
Shut the door! And they're like, what?
He says if they evacuate the plane, the fire, the jet fuel combined with the high winds will cause people outside to either burn to death or suffocate in the smoke.
Oh, goodness.
That's horrible. Will is certain that the plane will float and implores Kit, the co-pilot, to listen to him. Ed, that's Maya's guardian on the plane, argues against it. He's like, the procedure is to evacuate. Leave the plane. We need to do that. Kit demands that you comply. You need to comply because he's a flight attendant. She's essentially his boss. You need to comply.
Kit's the co-pilot, right?
Yeah, the co-pilot. Well, yeah. Kit, Ed decides to evacuate the plane and gets on a raft, leaving behind little Maya.
This is what I'm saying. He at work. So what would you have done? A random man, not in uniform, a passenger like you, is like, shut the exits.
So I don't want to be in the water with the fire, and the fuel is not mixing with the water. It's just sitting on top.
Of course.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's just going to be burning, and I'm going to be in the water with burning water. Excuse me.
No,
flames
that's a good way to
coming
describe it.
my way. So I don't want to
However,
be in
would you
that.
think maybe you can outswim the
I would never
petroleum?
think I can. I would never think that. I don't. Mm-mm.
Or
I
maybe
know how to
swim under
swim.
the fire? We
I
know.
don't-
We know, Alexis.
And I would never think like that. I'm going to say never, and I don't like to say never, but I don't think I would think like that. I wouldn't trust it.
So you would stay on the plane?
I think I would stay on the plane. I wouldn't know that man from Adam.
But so you wouldn't have even needed his suggestion. You would have
I
seen
wasn't
all
gonna jump
the
out
shrapnel.
That stuff is flying everywhere.
Like
I don't
bullets.
even know.
Shrapnel's like bullets. Fire, oil, bullets.
It don't sound like
Oh,
a good
Lord.
situation. It
And
don't.
what she didn't write about are the sharks, because they in there too. Just waiting. They like barbecue.
I wonder though, would they be in the vicinity because with the flames over the water.
But it's over the water and it's not going to heat the, I don't know, girl.
What would your response be?
So I'm already afraid because I can't swim, which there's a character in here I know you'll get to, and she can't swim and she's the only Black woman. And I'm like, hey, but then I remember I couldn't swim and I was like, I'll allow it. But
I'm not really going to get to it, but you can talk about it when I bring her up.
That's it. So I would be nervous about that. Also, I would be relying on the inflatable raft or vest, and that's no good in a fire. So also plastic burning to your body, that's no good. So I'm not sure. I would probably just choose the wisest amongst my group and do what they say. If I'm alone, then I'm going to follow the flight attendants. If they start arguing with each other, I'm going to go by rank. So how many stripes do they have on their sleeve? The person with the most stripes on their sleeve is the one I'm going to listen to.
So that could be the wrong person because they could have lost a stripe in the crash.
They're embroidered to just go. Y'all, it's midnight. Alexis got a lot on her mind. Go ahead. Okay. No, don't fall into the giggles. We in the plane crash.
Listen, Molly, another flight attendant, releases the slide raft and the evacuated passengers drift away.
Releases it as in disconnects it from the plane. That's it. It is final. If you on the plane now, you have to stay on the plane.
Okay, one door closed. She shuts the door, surveys the damage. Kaholo, another flight attendant, releases the other slide raft. And Andy, now that is blue polo shirt, who initially left the plane, is pulled on board before the remaining door is shut. Left on board are Will and Shannon, Kit the co-pilot, Ruth and Ira, the elderly couple. They're probably in their 80s. Bernadette, who's a nurse. She was sitting next to Andy. Jasmine,
the Black girl with long braids, who inflated her vest inside the plane and can't swim. I'll allow it.
Andy, Maya, the unaccompanied minor, Kaholo, the flight attendant, and Molly, the other flight attendant. So we're
missing some people.
2 flight attendants.
We have a honeymooning couple.
2 flight attendants and the co-pilot are the only crew remaining. Will explains that still in the plane was the best option as the conditions outside were more dangerous than the inside, and then one other passenger just kind of shows up. Turns out he's been in shock since the plane crash as his new wife died on impact. Just when they think they are semi-safe in the airplane, right? The fire's outside. They're inside the airplane. The cockpit windshield bursts and water rushes in. Kit and Kaholo rush to shut the door. In the process,
to the cockpit. Yeah.
Kaholo loses his fingertips. The plane then dips forward, starts to sink. Water rushes to the front of the plane while the remaining passengers rush to the back of the plane. Molly locates a water-activated emergency locator transmitter, which will allow the rescue team to find them. The passengers then realize that they're going to die. And Andy, the jerk, that's blue polo shirt. His name is Andy, the jerk. They would have a chance if they hadn't left the plane.
That's what they decide.
That's
Andy
what they
decides.
decide. The plane is sinking to the bottom of the ocean, and then suddenly it slams into something. But they're not dead. So
this book does a great thing where as soon as you're done holding your breath and you breathe a sigh of relief, it goes, but they didn't realize it was about to get much, much worse.
It does that a lot.
You're like, wait a second.
It does that a lot. Will thinks of his soon-to-be ex-wife, Chris, as he notices his daughter hasn't cried. And the last time she did, they were telling her they were getting a divorce. Part 2. We're going to do some flashbacks just a little bit to the 3 hours before the flight. Here's where we get a full introduction to Chris, Will's ex-wife, and Shannon's mother. I'll be quick. Chris is renovating the house in Hawaii.
How they named Chris and Will? You know they was slapping each other. That's an Oscars joke. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Chris is renovating the house in Hawaii that she and Will designed and built together. They bought the house about 16 years ago. They worked on the unfinished house together until about 6 years ago when their eldest daughter, Annie, died. Annie apparently hit her head during a trip to the public pool and died from a head injury. After the tragic accident, Will and Chris drifted apart and fought constantly before deciding to separate. Last year, Chris started to work on the house again on her own. So when Will arrives at the house, he reflects on Annie's death. He's worried about Shannon's upcoming trip, which she's going to San Francisco and she's going by herself. She was supposed to be an unaccompanied minor, but her father was like, nope.
What is she going to San Francisco for?
For camp.
Oh, for camp.
Yeah.
I love these resolutions. Like, we don't need to know everything. It's for camp.
It's for camp.
Got it.
So, like I said, Will insists on flying with her. So he goes into the house to pick her up. Chris tells Will that while he and Shannon are gone, she's going to finally pack up Annie's room. But Will doesn't like that. But Shannon is like, listen, that's what I'm going to do. And be prepared. And in fact, Shannon comes in and says, Dad, you're really overprotective and I don't like it.
Okay.
So that happens. So it's now 16 minutes since flight 1421 crashed, and there is an estimated 6.5 hours of oxygen inside the plane.
And Will's an engineer, so he was able to calculate this and write it on the wall.
Yeah. Fitz. Now we're introduced to Fitz. Fitz or Fritz? Fitzgerald. Fitz. He is the District 14 Coast Guard commander. He will lead the rescue and recovery mission for Flight 1421. First things first, he calls all available boats in the area, all available on-water vehicles to come to the area, and people respond. And I think this is such an interesting thing that happens because I've heard of it in real life.
Yeah, with the Coast Guard and
make a call. They can make a call and request for help, and boats will come if they're available to help. Regular people. And I think that's really cool. At this time, they said there are less than 25 survivors being pulled from the water, including Ed, the flight attendant who disagreed with staying on the plane.
And left the baby on the plane.
Yeah.
Which we're glad he did that at this point.
Chris, Shannon's mom, and her team were working on a project for the Navy when they're called to end their task for the day because something more pressing has come up. Annoyed at always being put off from completing their assigned task, she quickly learns that the Coast Guard has a rescue and recovery mission for commercial airline ditching. Chris is horrified when she learns it's the flight Will and Shannon are on. Chris and her colleagues follow Navy soldiers into the briefing about the rescue and recovery efforts for Flight 1421 with Fitz and the Navy Fleet Master Chief Patricia Larson. They go unnoticed until Chris hears that fewer than 10 survivors were found, but there may be more on the plane. Larson and Fitz decide that the submarine rescue diving and recompression system, aka the Falcon, is the best way to rescue the people on the plane. But Navy officer Roger reports that the system is broken and unusable. Now, I think that is real foul. How you got a whole piece of equipment?
I think that's realistic. It ain't even in the vicinity. It's like miles away, broken with no plans to repair. It's expensive.
No plans to repair it. It's just out there. This expensive piece of equipment broken, unusable, and they don't plan to fix it.
That's how organizations work, though.
Government organizations specifically.
Shut your mouth. Keep going.
I'm just saying. Chris speaks up, says she and her team will find a way to make it work. She's going to make that Falcon work because that seems like that's the thing that can help.
That's the best shot.
Fitz, recognizing her last name, acknowledges that she's related to people on the plane. Tells her she can stay, but only as an observer. Fitz tells Larson to use the Falcon as a sling to pull the plane out of the water. But Chris speaks up again and says, if there are people alive inside the plane, they would die if you use that method. She then
I don't know why that would even be suggested. You don't just reach in and pull people out of deep waters.
She then asks for the Falcon blueprint so she can figure out how to fix it. She said, I'm going to solve this case. Back on the plane, Kit, the co-pilot, remembers an article she read from survivors and how each person was given a task which gave them purpose. So she immediately assigns tasks to everyone. She asks Shannon and Maya to photograph the experience with her phone. Bernadette, the nurse, was asked to check everyone out. Jasmine was asked to assist, as well as, Jasmine said she could bartend, so she offered her services. Kaholo was asked to gather emergency supplies. Andy and Ryan were told to look through the overhead bins to see if there was anything they could use. Molly was tasked with getting everyone fed and hydrated. Ira and Ruth were to assist Molly. Meanwhile, Will figured out they had 5 or 6 hours before their oxygen would run out. Excuse me. But before the oxygen would run out, there's a higher risk. And what risk is that, Kari?
Carbon dioxide.
Poisoned by CO2. Andy the jerk asked if they knew people were on the plane that needed saving. And they're like, of course they know. And Will said, oh, wait, we might need to communicate, some form of communication down here. Kit and Kaholo search and they find the air-to-ground phone and connect with MedLink. And MedLink is a service for this air-to-ground communication. Kit is put in touch with Fitz, who now has cameras on the plane. And he can see the passengers smiling and ready to be rescued. So they've lowered cameras down into the ocean. It's around the plane and they can see the people inside. The people can see the cameras and they're like, oh, they know we're here. We're going to be saved. The passengers are feeling good. Help is on the way. Fitz tells Kit the plan. Kit tells Will the plan, who tells Fitz that their plan could kill everyone on board. Will explains to Fitz that water is still rising and that air is escaping through weak spots. Will hears a woman's voice agreeing with him and quickly learns that it's his ex-wife, Chris.
Not yet, ex. Estranged.
estranged. Fitz tells Kit that the rescue and recovery is still ongoing, but unfortunately, the numbers aren't going to be as high as you want. And the only reason the 12 on the plane are alive is because they didn't evacuate the plane.
Yeah, so how many bodies did they collect from the water? Like 4?
The
4
number
living
varies.
persons?
The numbers vary. I don't know.
But it's low. It's low.
Mhm.
Most of those people did die.
Mm-hmm. Yep. When the camera finally kind of zooms out and sees the full view, Fitz and the rest of the team learn that the plane is actually teetering on the edge of a cliff.
An underwater cliff. Ooh-wee.
First attempt. This first attempt is 1 hour, 59 minutes from the initial impact and approximately 4.5 hours oxygen is remaining. Now, I'm not completely sure what the first attempt involved, but I do know it included drilling an access trench on the seafloor. And whatever it was, Chris said it wasn't going to work. She's like, it's just not. That's not ideal. So the divers head down. They start this drilling. Will notices that when the drill is on, the water level are changing and the plane is swaying back and forth. So he has to speak with Fitz. He asks Fitz, wait, what did we land on exactly? And Fitz doesn't actually
Why are we so unstable?
He's like, what? Now what do you think is going on? Fitz looks at the camera and can see the plane is rocking back and forth and tells the divers to stop. But the divers can't hear over the drilling and the crumbling of the seafloor. The people on the plane are trying to get the divers' attention to tell them to stop. When the divers' attention is finally captured, it's too late. The ground is trembling. The cliff that they're on is broken and the whole edge begins to crumble. When the seafloor breaks beneath them, the hose to which his drill is attached knocks out. This is for one of the divers. The one drilling, I believe. His oxygen regulator is knocked off. He blacks out and he disappears into the sea.
He's no more. And he was a young kid with a life full of potential. Everyone loved him. And now his life is already over before it began. And it makes everyone really bummed out.
Kit tells Fitz they've lost at least half of their air because of this drilling.
So thanks.
The water has risen and the phone connection is deteriorating.
Yay.
So the first attempt has failed and they've lost a diver.
Maybe listen to Chris.
Chris tells Fitz her plan is ready. She's worked something out. She's got an idea. So her plan, I won't give you all the details, but I will tell you it is the second attempt. Is to use the Falcon. And they're going to add some attachments to the Falcon and to the plane so they can get the best use out of the Falcon. And if everything goes according to plan, the passengers will climb out of the plane into a rescue module. There are a couple problems that Fitz sees, but Chris says, I got those covered. Chris says, Fitz asks, is it safe? Chris says, safe doesn't live here anymore.
Is the safe in the room with us?
This is not gonna be nothing safe. No. Nothing's tested. It's not possible. From inside the plane, Will decides to do his part for Chris's plan to work. They need to take the plane apart. That means the inside, the interior. removing plastic panels, taking down the overhead bins. In this process, they come across a network of wires and emergency cutoff. And Will is concerned and doesn't want them to be in complete darkness. But Kit makes the final decision, and complete darkness takes over the plane. There is no power on the plane, not even the MedLink phone works.
Exactly. So they've lost their connection to the world above. Mm-hmm. And they really wanted to be part of that world.
To say the least.
Yeah.
Fitz tells Chris they are not going forward with her plan. And then bonus information for you, they've lost contact with the plane.
I thought this was well done because he's not an overbearing dictator in the situation. He really is trying to weigh all the factors. He lost a child. They commiserate on that. He learns that she's lost a child, but her living child is on that plane and she's going to do all she can to save all those passengers. She has a vested interest in this project. Mm-hmm. So there's mutual respect there, but he's really trying to weigh all of the factors.
Mm-hmm. And one of the factors introduces our third attempt. So we're going to put the second attempt on hold and try a third attempt. And who has that plan for the third attempt? The Navy. Mm-hmm. Fitz feels like the Navy's plan is a better plan and will get the people out safely.
You remember the accuracy or the success ratio?
Is it 32%?
Yeah, 32%. That's right. Mm-hmm. And these are professionals, like trained.
Yep. Mm-hmm. So the Navy steps in. They like, yeah, we got this idea. I don't want to give you too much of the idea, but I'll tell you a little bit about it. They got they receive the design specs for the plane. So like they know the plane in and out now. Mm-hmm. And they like, we can get these people out safely without harming them, without affecting their airflow, without causing water. We got this.
Without touching the plane, really.
So they're going to put the passengers in these special suits, guide them out of the plane. Chris disagrees with the plan. Okay,
because there are older people here. You got an unaccompanied minor. And you want them all to get into professional decompression suits, wade through pieces of glass that could tear into their suit. Remember not to hold their breath. Remember not to scream. You want these civilians to stay calm as you exit them one by one from the scariest situation they've ever faced in life.
Yeah. Yeah,
but you know, what's a better option?
and the Navy diver says that, look, hey, we just got to accept that not everybody is going to make it.
But I feel like is that not real? Like, this is the best option to save lives. It will likely not save every life.
Let's just say you have 4 up front that you saved. And there's 12 down and you're not going to try even harder to save them to 12. And it was 99 souls on the flight. You're not going to try just a little bit harder to make sure they all make it. Okay.
See, I don't know the science.
All right. Back on the plane, the passengers, like, they're still getting ready for Chris's plan. They need to make sure that there's no power on the plane so that when the Falcon is connected, there's no risk of injury. I'm going to leave that there. Okay. Chris's crew is still putting together the pieces to make her attempt to save the passengers since the special suits the Navy needs for passengers haven't arrived yet. She's like, I'm ready to put my plan in action. There are 2 pieces that she needs to create. One she needs to create, the other one she just needs to attach. In the process of making one of those pieces, it's broken and her colleague needs to start all over. But there's a time crunch, of course, because the Navy's got their plan, their master plan, and that's supposed to save the day. Chris instructs her team to get started, and we're going to try this dive anyway. Just then, the Navy suits arrive. So the Navy divers explain to the passengers how this is going to work. They're making it sound really easy. However, the passengers are not falling for it, and they voice their concerns.
They're very sassy, these people. Like, you want to be killed or not? They like, do what in the what now?
Exactly. Exactly.
New plan, please.
The Navy wasn't expecting this amount of pushback. However, the passenger realized that there's no other alternative. So Kaholo volunteered to go first. Now, Kaholo is the most physically fit of the passengers. So he's above average of the 12. Okay. And he snorkeled.
Oh, snorkeled. He's not a surfer?
He's a surfer too, but he's also snorkeled.
Okay. He be all up in the water. Okay, then I just want to say there's a lot of interesting personal things going on while they're waiting for the plan, while they're preparing to follow the plan amongst the passengers. There's a fist fight with Blue Polo and Will. That leads to us thinking something about Will and realizing something about Blue Polo. This ain't a spoiler, but it kind of is. Blue Polo family don't even know he in Hawaii. They think he at work somewhere in the Midwest. He was going to see another woman. He's just all bad. Then also the black girl who can't swim, they have a moment, I can't remember if it's here or afterward, where they teach her to swim.
That's in this process here.
I thought that was audacious. Like, I've had 3 swim classes. Calm down. You did not just learn how to swim.
But they don't teach her how to swim. They teach her how to tread water, which is a life-saving
Which is the
measure.
only thing I can't do. And so I don't consider myself a swimmer. Well, I guess it's a lot I can't do. But that's what saves your life.
Treading water, I think, is more important than actually swimming life. Because when push comes to shove, if you can wade in the water, just kind of get in there and do that. Somebody can come and get you.
That's what I want to learn how to do.
You get tired swimming laps, shoot.
And then the surfer snorkeler who volunteers himself as tribute for this special plan with the Navy. There's a moment where there is some carbon dioxide poisoning. I can't remember if it was here, but someone passes out and I can't remember why. But he says, blow in her face. Because that's what we do when you pass out in the water, and it's like a reflex. And it doesn't work in the moment. Everyone's like, please go sit down and never speak again. But everything in these little moments comes back full circle in the end. And I love that. It's not pointless. None of it is pointless. Even between Ira and Ruth, they have this talk about Titanic, the movie, and how he says it was stupid. He'll never go see it. And then he starts crying. He's like, I have a woman I love, a wife I love, and 2 daughters. I could never see a movie like that thinking it could be you guys. And all of this matters in the final chapters of the book. And I thought, kudos. I also thought, who wrote this book and who wrote Drowning?
Can we pause you? Okay.
We'll say that for the end of the show.
Let's just wrap it up because you guys, once Kaholo agrees to go first, they tell him what he can't do. And as Kari mentioned previously, that means you can't hold your breath. So on that note, we're going to end it because will Kaholo and the rest of the passengers make it out alive? Pick up the book, finish it out.
Yeah, why are you telling stories? They don't make it out alive. They do and they don't. Let's leave it on that.
Let's take a quick break.
Okay, sounds good.
And we're back.
Woo.
Kari. We did not spoil that book. We just kind of dipped our toes in it, talked about a few things that happened, but I want to know, what's your final verdict and would you recommend this book?
Listen, if 1 to 5, 5 being Anna Karenina, and one being Uglies by Scott Westfeld, which I read this weekend. In that range, this book for me is a solid 4. I loved this book. I was holding my breath. I was in the moment. My plane was hanging on the edge of a cliff underwater in the deep blue sea. I cried. In this book multiple times.
Oh, wow. Oh.
I thought character development was top tier. Nothing happens in this book without a purpose. And thank you for TJ Newman for giving the reader, for valuing our time. You know how you read a book, and we just read a book with a lot of side plots, some backstory that led nowhere. And this is the most frustrating thing. In this book, everything that's fed to you, all the details matter. There's a part at the end, soft spoiler, where the Black girl that just learned how to swim is the only one that notices one flight attendant is drowning, and she is the one that is able to go and get that flight attendant. Real tears. Then we learned something about one of the passengers facing a terminal illness. And so they are more willing to make a sacrifice in the end because they had weeks left and they felt like this was a good use of the final days of their life. Yeah, the little interactions between little girls. Now, if you've been a long time listener to the show, you know my heartstrings is with the little girls. When they meeting each other and they becoming friends, the way Shannon watches over the other little girl, and the way the little girl asks Shannon questions that are expository for Will, who has kind of been stuck in this moment since his oldest daughter died, where he doesn't just communicate with Shannon. He's more protective of her only. All he cares about is protecting her, but asking her how she feels, what she thinks about things. They start writing letters to people. If they do die, they want people to know this about them. And the little girl asked Shannon, what did you think of your sister? What do you miss about her? And Will is so grateful for that little girl in this moment. And it is a tearjerker, you guys. It's really good. So in conclusion, there is some language specifically by Blue Shirt because he's a jerk. And so it feeds into his story, especially when he's fighting against Will. Everything Will says, he wants to argue with. He wants to be the alpha. He's not an alpha. He's not Sigma. He is a jerk. He's a jerk. So in conclusion, yes, I would recommend this book. I highly enjoyed it, and I'd read again, even morbidly, on a trip to Hawaii. So next time I go to Hawaii, which is my favorite place on earth, Maui specifically, I'm going to read this book. And on that note, Alexis, what did you think about Drowning by TJ Newman, and would you recommend this story?
Well, I just loved your thoughts, Kari. That was very nice. That was a mouthful. For me, Alexis, I enjoyed the book. I enjoyed it more than Falling. Now, at the end of Falling, I think we said we liked the book. We had some critique, but we overall said we liked the book. I changed minds based on this book because this was a much better. If I knew you could
do this, TJ Newman, I never would have been easy on you with Fall.
And you were very easy on her, which was surprising to me because I was like, bam, bam, bam. These are the things that you have told me are problematic in books. But
yeah, you was calling me out on that episode. But I'm like, this is a debut novel. You know, there's some things you got to learn. Oh, boy.
But this book is indeed excellent. The technical aspects, I think they are. Thank you for bringing that to my attention, that it is very similar to Michael Crichton's work on Jurassic Park. And I appreciated it there. This one wasn't for my mind. It was more advanced than I could be. So I didn't appreciate it fully. Even though the story had me on the edge of my seat. So the technical pieces could pass because I was still hanging on.
But did they kind of take you out of the story? Like the jargon, the acronyms, the initialisms?
Yep. But you're still, you still can jump right back in there when they're like, oh, and the water is coming through. They're all going to die. Yeah. There's a fire outside with flames and people are jumping in there. Bodies are over. It was a lot. I enjoyed the book. I would definitely recommend it.
And you definitely have to suspend that disbelief to the high skies because it's going to start being like, well, how'd you get in this water and you supposed to be here and such and how you do that? But it's okay. It is written so well that it just adds to the overall feels of the story. Can I compare it lastly to one of my favorite movies from this year, Godzilla -1. Now, technically, that story is stupid. Nothing in that movie makes sense. There is a part where some boats show up and then within seconds, boats are surrounding a ship. They just got there. How did they do this? It doesn't make sense, but it feels like a movie. That is a movieing movie. And it is trying to put feels in you. And I feel like it does that. Same with this book. There are times when you like, no, this don't make any sense, but this okay. Because the feels are feeling. I was feeling them.
There is emotion in this book. There's quite a bit of emotion in this book. And the way the feelings are written, they're written very well because you can shed tears with this book. I did not, but you can. It's possible.
Some parts are poetic when it's talking about Fitz and how they know without saying to each other, him and Chris, that they've both had the same type of loss. Well done. Well done. That part really well written. The whole book.
There's a few places in here that I have highlighted expressions that I think I was like, oh, she said that really well.
You have an ebook?
I have a PDF.
Oh, okay, that's really nice because electronically you can always save and refer to certain quotes easier than physical annotations.
Yeah, strong women know loving someone is easy. Respecting them is a choice. That was one line I remember. I appreciate. Oh, none of the divers moved or said a word. Do they know they're on the edge of a cliff? Rod asked. Fitz and Milton shared a look. No, Fitz said. These people don't need to know all the ways they can die.
Ah, that was so good.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Alexis. Any more quotes you'd like to share?
I can't remember where the other ones are.
She's saving a lot for you guys because it's going to be a couple more twists and some turns from where Alexis left off.
Yeah, and then not the kind of twists and turns that send you off somewhere that has no value, as Kari mentioned. And reading this book just reminded me of that. It's like, I really don't like those twists and turns that have no value.
Girl, I've read so many books this month and they were terrible. All of them had cheap twists at the end. And I'm like, why are we doing this? Why are you on the moon? Why?
How did we get here?
Oh, they're brothers, the killers. Okay, duh. You didn't see that in the beginning? Anyway, but all the twists in this book served their purpose and stayed within the realm of the universe that was created at the beginning of the book. So
yeah, definitely.
Well done, TJ Newman. Alexis, what are we reading next week?
Behind Closed Doors by B.A. Paris.
Thank you. And thank you all for listening to Lit Society. You know, we didn't really talk about it much this week, but this is kind of like the final episode you can hear of our show without being a member on Patreon. But don't worry, membership is free. Go to patreon.com/litsocietypod to sign up. You can also sign up for membership on Apple Podcasts and YouTube. But for the most amazing benefits, we really recommend you go to patreon.com/litsocietypod. Thank you again for listening to Lit Society. We'll see you next Thursday. Lit Society is brought to you by Alexis Honoria and Kari Herrera. Support the cause by becoming a member for free on patreon.com. If you've enjoyed what you've just heard, tell a friend about Lit Society. Visit litsocietypod.com for show notes, this month's book list, and to sign up for our amazing email newsletter. And until next time, you guys, read something.